Throughout our deceptive history, we've been told to believe that a horse and cart civilization of the 18th and 19th centuries and earlier were building structures like this. Once you really think about it, the narrative begins to disintegrate. An impossibility for a horse and cart society to build magnificent structures like this. These structures were never cathedrals, churches, parliament buildings or mosques. They were energy buildings of the old world. And once you see it, you then cannot forget about it, because all of these buildings share the same structural design, as you can see from these pictures. But once you see it, it becomes so obvious that you begin to see these buildings in a completely different light. All domed, with cupulas on the top, noble metal conductor orbs, and of course, the antenna. Here we have the cupola zoomed in on these structures, and in its original form it would have had the red mercury spinning around in a vortex, creating the abundance of free energy, and then it would have been sent down into the cavity resonator, which would have been in the dome, and then throughout the rest of the structure itself. But if this was obviously a cathedral, a church, then why would every single one have this cupola at the top and the same design principle? Well, the domes, every single thing is near enough the same, and it's because every single one had the similar or the same purpose. But it's magnetism and electromagnetic waves that was most important in this grid at creating the energy. Once the ether or the energy had been extracted through the antennas on all of these structures, it was then enhanced through these horseshoe-shaped triumphal arches around the realm. All of these triumphal arches that you're seeing here are all in the shape of a horseshoe magnet for a very important reason. They were giant magnets, and they were enhancing the energy and distributing it throughout the realm, providing free clean energy for the entire earth. These were redesignated as triumphal arches, but an underdeveloped people could not have built these structures. As you can see here underneath the Arc de Triomphe, you can see the symmetrical ornamentation underneath, which was used to vibrate the ions. And what's really interesting here is it's the same underneath the domes in the cathedrals, because it had the same purpose of vibrating the ions, enhancing the energy. This was not just artwork. In fact, it was not artwork at all, but it had a very important reason, a very important purpose in the electromagnetic world. We see structures like this cathedral in Dresden, exactly the same as the one in Preston, the courthouse, that I'm about to show you now, and this is because they both had the same purpose. Again, these were not separate buildings. It is too much of a coincidence for these two structures to be identical or near enough identical. These were both energy buildings. Just look at Paris in the early 1900s. Why would they have so many cathedrals and churches on the same street? Look at all these buildings. This was the grid. This was one of the major cities, one of the major electromagnetic cities in the world. And look at it now. This is the same space, the same picture now. They've destroyed it all. They've hidden it in front of our faces. The pictures still remain. The evidence still remains. Just take a look at these pictures. Here we have two magnificent structures in Amsterdam, which was another major city in the electromagnetic grid. These pictures were taken by a good friend of mine. And again, you can see the cupulas, the antennas, the noble metal conductor orbs, still here, still going strong today. Just look at these pictures. This is everywhere in our realm. The same design, the cupola, the dome, the antenna. Look, it is obvious. You cannot go back to sleep once you see it. Here we have a cavity magnetron though, and this is a picture actually, a diagram, and this is what we find with most of our microwaves. And as we can see, there is a tube, what you call a cathode, going in between of this. And look at this, the cavity magnetron in the building, exactly the same as in the diagram. And in the middle circle would have housed the cathode. The cathode, cathedral, cathode, it's the same word. It's what it came from. Cathedral came from cathode. It's an electric magnetic world. And we see these cavity magnetrons on pretty much all of the old world structures, which now they've added glass to them to completely stop the vibrating ions. And here is one of the churches that I wandered to not long ago. And to wrap part one up, I want to leave you with some images of these structures. That our civilization and the past civilization, definitely not with the tools that we're told they had. Primitive technology in horse and cart could not have built. An advanced civilization built all of these old world structures and built them for a purpose. And that is why they have the same design principles, always next to water, always the cavity magnetrons, always the antennas, always the domes. It is unbelievable how much history has been a lie. I shall see you soon in part 2.